The screens in the command center showed nothing but empty space where Luna Base 7 used to be. Captain Jake Morrison stared at the spot, his hands gripping the metal rail so hard his knuckles turned white. 3 minutes ago, 12,000 people lived and worked on that base. Now there was only glowing dust and debris floating in the black. "Sir, we're getting a transmission," said Lieutenant Bobby Chun from his station. His voice shook as he spoke. "It's coming from the alien ships." Jake turned away from the window. The orbital defense platform Defiance had been his home for 2 years, but today it felt like a tomb. Through the thick glass, he could see other human ships floating nearby, all of them too small and too few to fight what was coming. "Put it on the main screen," Jake said. The alien face that appeared was not like anything from Earth's movies. The creature had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its gray face. When it spoke, the words came through the translation system in perfect English. "I am Commander Vexthal of the Vorthek Collective," the alien said. Its voice was calm, almost bored. "Your species has 72 hours to surrender all military assets to our forces. You will also provide complete databases of your technology and population centers. Compliance will result in efficient occupation. Resistance will result in total extinction." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in silence. Jake looked around at his crew. Some were crying. Others stared at their screens with blank faces. All of them had friends or family on Luna Base 7. "Orders, sir?" asked Bobby. Jake didn't answer right away. He was thinking about his sister Mary, who worked in the hydroponic gardens on the moon base. She had 2 kids who visited every summer. This week was summer vacation. On Earth, Dr. Lisa Carter watched the same transmission from her lab in Colorado. She had spent 15 years studying alien psychology, preparing for this exact moment. But seeing it happen still made her stomach twist with fear. "Run the behavioral analysis again," she told her computer. Numbers and charts filled her screens, showing everything they knew about Vorthek society. These aliens were conquerors, but they were also careful. They studied their enemies before attacking. Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her keyboard. The Vorthek had been watching Earth for decades, learning about human behavior. They knew about human wars, human politics, and human emotions. They thought. They understood how humans would react to loss. "They expect us to cry and give up," Lisa said to her empty lab. "They think grief makes us weak." She was wrong about being alone. Her assistant, Dr. Paul Davis, stood in the doorway holding 2 cups of coffee. His eyes were red from crying, but his hands were steady. "The president wants to see your report in 1 hour," Paul said, setting a cup on her desk. "The military is asking if we should fight or surrender." Lisa picked up the coffee but didn't drink it. "Paul, what did you do when your dog died last year?" Paul looked confused. "I buried him in the backyard." "Why? What'd you do after that?" "I got another dog, a bigger one." Paul's eyes widened as he understood. "Oh, exactly. The Vorthek studied our wars and our politics, but they never studied our families. They don't understand what happens when you kill our children." Far underground in Nevada, Admiral Rick Hayes sat at a long table with military leaders from around the world. The room had no windows and thick concrete walls. Maps of Earth and space covered every surface, with red marks showing where alien ships were positioned. "The Chinese want to surrender immediately," said General Kate Williams. "The Russians are mobilizing everything they have. The Europeans are split down the middle." Rick Hayes was 62 years old and had served in 3 different wars. He had grandchildren who were supposed to visit Luna Base 7 next month. "We're supposed to—" "What about our space assets?" he asked. 17 combat ships, not counting orbital platforms like the Defiance," said Colonel Amy Rodriguez. "The aliens have over 200 vessels that we can detect." "That we can detect," Rick repeated. "What about civilian ships?" Amy looked confused. Admiral, civilian ships don't have weapons. They have engines, they have fuel, they can carry things. Rick stood up and walked to a map of Earth. How many people work in aerospace companies? Maybe 500,000 worldwide. How many retired military personnel are there? I don't understand. Sir, Rick turned to face the room. The Vorthik think they know us. They studied our governments and our armies. But they never studied our families or our civilians. They think only soldiers fight wars. At Luna Base 7's sister facility on Earth, engineer Ben Parker was loading equipment into trucks. The official story was evacuation, but Ben knew better. He had been building spacecraft for 20 years, and he knew the difference between running away and getting ready to fight. His team worked through the night, moving everything useful to hidden locations. Communication equipment, manufacturing tools, computer systems, even the coffee machines. If it could help build weapons, it went into the trucks. Mr. Parker, called his assistant, Jenny Martinez. The government says we should stop all production and prepare for occupation. Ben looked at the young woman. She was fresh out of college, smart as anyone he had ever met. Her brother worked on Luna Base 7, had worked. Jenny, did you see the alien broadcast? Yes, sir. What did you think? About it? Jenny was quiet for a moment. I thought about my brother Tony. He was going to get married next month. His fiancée was on the base too. Ben nodded. Keep loading the trucks. Around the world, similar scenes played out in factories, military bases, and research centers. What looked like panic and evacuation was actually something else entirely. People were moving, but not randomly. Equipment was being hidden, not abandoned. Families were saying goodbye, but not forever. The first day ended with memorial services in every major city on Earth. Millions of people gathered to remember the dead from Luna Base 7. The Vorthik observed these gatherings through their surveillance systems, satisfied with what they saw. The aliens recorded human tears and human speeches. They noted the flowers and the candles and the pictures of the dead. Everything matched their predictions about human grief behavior. What they didn't notice were the quiet conversations happening at the edges of those crowds. Veterans finding each other. Engineers exchanging contact information. Families making plans for their children to stay with relatives in safer places. The Vorthik expected Earth to spend its remaining time begging for mercy. Instead, Earth was getting ready for war. Commander Vexthul reviewed the day's intelligence reports with satisfaction. The humans were reacting exactly as predicted. Soon, Earth would surrender, and the Vorthik Collective would add another species to their empire. He had no idea that his 72-hour deadline had just become humanity's preparation time. Colonel Amy Rodriguez woke up at 4 in the morning to find 17 messages on her secure phone. All from people she had served with years ago. People who were supposed to be retired and living quiet lives. The messages were all different, but they meant the same thing. We're ready. She dressed quickly and drove to a small diner outside town. The parking lot was full of trucks and old cars, but the diner looked normal from the outside. Inside, she found 30 people she hadn't seen in years. Former soldiers, pilots, and engineers. All of them drinking coffee and eating breakfast like it was any other day. "Morning, Colonel," said Jake Turner, who used to fix helicopters. "Heard you might need some help with a project." Amy sat down at the counter. The waitress brought her coffee without asking. "What kind of project?" "The kind where we make sure those gray bastards regret what they did yesterday," said Maria Santos, a former fighter pilot. "We've got people calling in from all over the country. Seems like a lot of folks want to volunteer for something." Amy looked around the diner. These weren't active military. They were grandparents and small business owners, people who fixed cars and taught school. But they all had one thing in common. They knew how to fight. The government hasn't asked for volunteers. Amy said carefully. The government doesn't know what it's asking for yet, replied Jake. But we do. Meanwhile, in orbit, Captain Jake Morrison was discovering that his defense platform wasn't as alone as he thought. His communications officer, Bobby Chun, had been picking up coded transmissions all morning. Short bursts of data that looked like routine maintenance reports, but weren't. "Sir, I'm getting signals from Satellite Network 7, Bobby reported. "They're supposed to be offline for repairs." Jake knew about Satellite Network 7. It was a group of old military satellites that had been decommissioned 5 years ago. Or so everyone thought. "Can you decode the signals?" "Working on it, sir." Bobby's fingers flew over his keyboard. "Sir, these aren't maintenance reports. They're position updates and equipment status. These satellites are armed and operational." Jake felt a cold smile cross his face. Someone had been planning for this day long before the aliens arrived. Who's controlling them? "The signals are coming from Earth, but they're bouncing through so many relays I can't track the source. Whoever is running this operation knows how to stay hidden." On Earth, Ben Parker was having the strangest day of his life. His company was supposed to be evacuating, but somehow his factories were working harder than ever. Trucks arrived every hour with materials that didn't appear on any official orders. People showed up with skills they weren't supposed to have. "Mr. Parker," called Jenny Martinez from across the factory floor. "We've got a problem with the new arrivals." Ben walked over to find a group of 20 people standing near the main assembly line. They looked like ordinary citizens, but something about them seemed familiar. "Who are you folks?" Ben asked. An older woman stepped forward. "I'm Ruth Davis. I used to build guidance systems for missiles back in the day. Heard you might need some help with a rush job. This is a civilian facility. We don't build weapons here." Ruth smiled. "Son, I can turn a toaster into a bomb if I need to. Question is, do you want to fight back or do you want to surrender?" Ben looked at the group. A mechanic, a computer programmer, a chemistry teacher, and others. All of them with useful skills and angry expressions. "How did you know to come here?" "Word gets around," Ruth said. "People talk to people. Someone always knows someone who knows someone else. Been happening since yesterday, all over the country." Dr. Lisa Carter was seeing the same pattern from her lab in Colorado. Her computers were tracking communication patterns across the entire planet, and what she found amazed her. The official government channels were full of surrender negotiations and evacuation orders. But underneath that, a completely different network was operating. "Paul, look at this," she called to her assistant. "Internet traffic is up 300%, but it's not panic searches or news reading. It's people finding each other." Paul studied the data on her screen. Social media, old military forums, even gaming networks. Everyone's talking in code, but they're definitely organizing something. The Vorthik are monitoring our official communications, but they're missing this completely. They don't understand how human social networks actually work. Lisa pulled up another screen showing alien ship positions. "The Vorthik fleet is moving closer to Earth. They think we're getting ready to surrender, because our governments are negotiating. Are we surrendering?" Lisa looked at the communication patterns again. Millions of people making contact with each other, sharing information, moving resources. It looked like chaos, but there was a pattern underneath it all. "Paul, what does it look like when a beehive is attacked?" "I don't know. Chaotic? From the outside, yes. But inside the hive, every bee knows exactly what to do. They don't need orders from the queen. They just act." In space, Commander Vexthul was pleased with the intelligence reports from Earth. Human governments were requesting more time to consider surrender terms. Their military forces appeared to be standing down. Civilian populations were evacuating major cities in what looked like complete panic. "The humans are behaving exactly as predicted," he told his staff. Their emotional response to loss has paralyzed their decision-making ability. They will surrender within the next day. His intelligence officer, Sub-Commander Zektow, reviewed the Earth monitoring data. Sir, we're detecting increased communication traffic, but it appears to be random civilian panic responses. Nothing organized or militarily significant. Excellent. Move the fleet to attack positions. When they surrender tomorrow, we want to be ready for immediate occupation. What the Vorthik didn't see were the thousands of small groups forming across Earth. Veterans meeting in diners, engineers gathering in hidden factories, pilots heading to secret airfields. Government officials were negotiating surrender, but the people were preparing for war. The second day ended with Earth's leaders announcing they needed more time to finalize surrender terms. The request was broadcast on all channels, and the Vorthik accepted it with amusement. They interpreted the delay as human weakness and desperation, but in underground bunkers, abandoned warehouses, and suburban garages, something else was happening. Ordinary people were becoming soldiers. Civilian equipment was becoming weapons. And a plan was forming that would catch the aliens completely off guard. The Vorthik expected to face Earth's small military. Instead, they were about to face an entire planet that had turned itself into a weapon. They just didn't know it yet. The school buses looked ordinary enough. Yellow paint, black lettering, the same kind that took children to school every day across America. But these buses weren't carrying children. They were carrying computer hard drives filled with military secrets, weapon components disguised as spare parts, and scientists pretending to be refugees. Dr. Paul Davis sat in the back of one such bus, holding a briefcase that contained 20 years of alien technology research. Around him, other passengers clutched similar cases and bags. To anyone watching, they looked like scared civilians fleeing the cities. In reality, they were the most important people on Earth, moving to secret locations where they could work without being detected. How much further? Asked the woman sitting next to him. She was Dr. Helen Ross, who had designed the guidance systems for Earth's most advanced missiles. 2 more hours, Paul replied. The facility is completely underground. The Vorthik won't even know it exists. Through the bus window, they could see other vehicles on the highway. Moving trucks, family cars packed with belongings, even ice cream trucks that certainly weren't selling ice cream anymore. The entire civilian transportation network had been turned into a massive military operation, and the aliens had no idea. Back on the orbital platform Defiance, Captain Jake Morrison was learning just how wrong his initial assessment had been. What he thought was a small defense force was actually much larger than anyone realized. His communications officer Bobby Chen had been tracking signals all morning, and the numbers kept growing. Sir, I count 47 armed satellites that are supposed to be decommissioned, Bobby reported, plus 23 space stations that were supposedly abandoned. And we're getting launch signatures from sites that aren't supposed to exist. Jake studied the tactical display. Green dots appeared across the screen, each one representing a human asset in space. Yesterday, he thought they had maybe 20 ships to fight with. Now it looked like they had over 100. Who's coordinating all this? I'm not sure, sir. The command signals are coming from multiple sources on Earth, but they're all synchronized. Someone has been planning this for years. The answer to Jake's question was sitting in a bunker 3 miles underground in Montana. Admiral Rick Hayes looked nothing like a traditional military commander. He wore civilian clothes and worked at a desk that looked like it belonged in an office building. But the screens around him showed every military asset on Earth and in space. Status report, he said to the room full of people working at similar desks. European underground facilities are at full capacity, reported one woman. Asian manufacturing centers have tripled output in the last 24 hours. South American launch sites are ready for operations. What about the civilian evacuation? Proceeding on schedule. We've moved over 2 million people to secure locations, plus all critical personnel and equipment. The Vorthik are reading it. As panic evacuation, just like we hoped, Rick nodded. The evacuation was real, but it wasn't what it appeared to be. Instead of running away, civilians were moving to positions where they could support military operations. Families were being separated, but not randomly. Children went to the safest locations, while parents moved to where they could be most useful. Dr. Lisa Carter was now working from one of those underground facilities, a laboratory that officially didn't exist. Her team had grown from 2 people to over 50, all experts in alien psychology and technology. They had been studying the Vorthik for years, preparing for exactly this situation. I've got the psychological profile complete, Lisa announced to the room. The Vorthik are a hierarchical species. They follow orders without question and expect other species to do the same. They literally cannot understand how humans can coordinate without central command. Her assistant Jenny Martinez, who had joined them from Ben Parker's factory, looked up from her computer. That explains why they keep underestimating our response. They see our government asking for more time and think that means everyone is waiting for orders. Exactly. They don't understand that humans can organize themselves. When they destroyed Luna Base 7, they expected our government to make a decision for everyone. Instead, 12 million individuals all made the same decision independently. What decision was that? Lisa's expression hardened. To make them pay. The Vorthik were beginning to sense that something was wrong, but they couldn't figure out what. Commander Vex Thul studied the intelligence reports from Earth with growing confusion. Human activity was increasing instead of decreasing, but it all appeared to be random civilian movement. Sub-Commander, explain these readings, he demanded. Zektal brought up holographic displays showing Earth's surface. Sir, we're detecting massive population movements, but they appear chaotic. Humans are fleeing cities, but they're not going to logical refuge areas. Some are moving toward military installations instead of away from them. Are they trying to surrender at military bases? Possibly, sir. We're also detecting increased industrial activity, but our analysis suggests it's panic production of civilian goods. Nothing militarily significant. Vex Thul was troubled, but not alarmed. Humans were emotional creatures, and their behavior during crisis was naturally irrational. Still, he decided to send a message to discourage any thoughts of resistance. Attack on the International Space Station was meant to be a demonstration. A single Vorthik ship approached the station and destroyed it with one shot from a plasma cannon. The destruction was broadcast across all human communication networks, ensuring everyone on Earth could see their helplessness. The reaction was exactly what the Vorthik expected. Increased panic, more desperate calls for surrender from human governments, and what appeared to be complete breakdown of civilian morale. What they didn't realize was that the space station had been evacuated days ago, and its destruction provided human scientists with crucial data about Vorthak weapons. Dr. Lisa Carter and her team watched the attack footage over and over, analyzing every detail. The weapon's energy signature, the shield configurations, the attack approach patterns. Information that would have taken months to gather through espionage was handed to them in one convenient demonstration. Got it, announced Dr. Helen Ross, who had been studying the plasma weapons frequency. Their shields operate on a rotating harmonic pattern. If we can match the frequency at the right moment, we can punch right through them. How long do we need to build weapons that can do that? Asked Lisa. Helen smiled for the first time in days. We've been building them for the last 48 hours. Every factory on Earth has been working on components. We just needed to know what frequency to tune them to. As the third day ended, Earth's leaders made another public announcement requesting additional time to finalize surrender terms. The broadcast was full of diplomatic language about protecting civilian populations and ensuring peaceful transition. The Vorthek accepted the delay with growing impatience, but remained confident in their ultimate victory. What they couldn't see was the true scale of what humanity had built in just 3 days. Every civilian ship in space had been converted into a weapon. Every factory on Earth was producing military equipment. Every retired soldier had been called back to service. Every scientist was working on ways to kill aliens. The Vorthek fleet moved closer to Earth, positioning themselves for what they believed would be a simple occupation. They expected to face a small, demoralized military force and a broken civilian population. Instead, they were about to face an entire species that had turned its grief into the largest coordinated military operation in human history. Tomorrow, the sky would burn, and the aliens would learn what humans really do when someone kills their children. At exactly 12 noon Greenwich Mean Time, President Karen Walsh stood before the cameras in the White House. Her face was pale, and her voice shook as she spoke to the world. "My fellow humans," she began. "After careful consideration, the United States and our allies have decided to accept the Vorthek terms of surrender. We cannot fight an enemy so far beyond our capabilities. We must think of our children and our future." Commander Vex Thul watched the broadcast from his command ship with satisfaction. The human leader looked defeated, broken. Her military advisors stood behind her with heads bowed. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. "Move the fleet to occupation positions," he ordered. "Prepare boarding parties for the major population centers." The humans have accepted reality. What Vexthul didn't know was that President Walsh had just given the signal that humanity had been waiting for. The phrase, "think of our children," was not about surrender. It was about revenge for the children who died on Luna Base 7, Admiral. Rick Hayes sat in his underground bunker, watching the same broadcast. As soon as the president finished speaking, he turned to his communications officer. "Send the message," he said quietly. The message was simple. "Remember Luna Base 7. Those 4 words went out to every human military installation on Earth and in space, to former soldiers hiding in civilian jobs, to factory workers who had spent 3 days building weapons, to pilots waiting in converted civilian spacecraft, to scientists who had turned their laboratories into weapons. Research Centers. Captain Jake Morrison received the message on his orbital platform at 12:01 p.m. He looked around his command center at the crew who had been with him for 2 years. Men and women who had watched their friends die on Luna Base 7. People who had spent 72 hours preparing for this moment. "All stations, this is Captain Morrison," he announced over the ship's communication system. "Today we find out what humans do when someone kills our children. Weapons free. Engage all targets." The first shots came from satellites that were supposed to be dead and abandoned. 47 weapons platforms that had been floating in space for years suddenly came alive, their nuclear warheads streaking toward the Vorthak fleet. The aliens had no warning, no time to prepare. Commander Vexthul watched his tactical display in horror as dozens of his ships disappeared in nuclear fire. Impossible. The humans surrendered. Their weapons are primitive. "Sir, we're detecting massive launch signatures from the planet's surface," reported his tactical officer. "Over 3,000 missiles inbound." The missiles weren't just military weapons. They were converted civilian rockets, modified in hidden factories across 6 continents. Each one carried a nuclear warhead tuned to the exact frequency that would penetrate Vorthek shields. Dr. Helen Ross and her team had worked around the clock to build them. Using data from the space station attack, the Parker's converted spacecraft led the second wave of attacks. What had looked like desperate refugee ships fleeing Earth were actually suicide bombers filled with explosives. Former civilian pilots like Steve Walsh and Kate Brooks flew them straight into the largest alien vessels, their final transmissions filled with the names of Luna Base 7's dead. "This is for Tony Martinez," Kate Brooks said into her radio as she guided her ship toward a Vorthik cruiser. "He was going to get married next month." The explosion that followed took out the cruiser's main reactor and killed 800 alien crew members. In space, the battle was chaos. The Vorthik had trained to fight organized fleets using predictable tactics. Instead, they faced thousands of individual human ships attacking from every direction. Some were armed with advanced weapons. Others were just using their ships as missiles. All of them were piloted by people who had nothing left to lose. Captain Morrison's defense platform revealed its true nature as hidden. Weapon ports opened across its hull. Working with the reactivated satellite network, he coordinated attacks that hit alien ships from multiple angles simultaneously. The Vorthik formation tactics crumbled under the assault. "Target their command ship," Morrison ordered. "Everything we have." The command ship was a massive vessel, 5 times larger than any human spacecraft. But it was also positioned exactly where the Vorthik formations required it to be: predictable, vulnerable. 6 nuclear missiles hit the command ships. Shields at precisely the same moment, all tuned to the same frequency. The shields failed for exactly 2 seconds. In that gap, Steve Walsh's converted cargo ship slammed into the command deck at full speed. "Commander." Vexthil died not understanding what had happened. His species had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had never faced an enemy that turned its entire civilization into a weapon. On Earth, the ground-based battle was equally devastating. Colonel Amy Rodriguez led attacks on alien landing parties using tactics the Vorthik had never seen. Retired soldiers emerged from hiding places in every city, armed with weapons built in suburban garages. School teachers used chemistry knowledge to make explosives. Mechanics turned ordinary vehicles into mobile weapons platforms. The Vorthik had expected to fight Earth's small military. Instead, they fought millions of civilians who had military training, industrial knowledge, and unlimited rage. "Sir, we're losing ships faster than we can count them," reported Vexthil's second-in-command over the radio. "The humans aren't just fighting back, they're winning." Dr. Lisa Carter coordinated the psychological warfare from her underground laboratory. Every human broadcast to the Vorthak fleet showed pictures of the children who died on Luna Base 7. Not to ask for sympathy, but to promise that each death would be paid for with alien blood. "Tell them," she said into the microphone, "that this is what happens when you make humans cry." The battle raged for 18 hours. Human losses were enormous. Entire cities volunteered their populations to manufacture ammunition. Civilians operated weapons from their homes, turning suburban neighborhoods into military command centers. Grandmothers guided suicide drones into alien ships. Children as young as 12 worked in factories building missiles. But the Vorthik losses were worse. They had never faced an enemy that used its entire population as combatants. Every human they killed was replaced by 10 more. Every ship they destroyed was answered by 20 human attacks. As the sun set on the 4th day, the alien fleet was broken. More than half their ships were destroyed or disabled. The survivors began retreating beyond Earth's moon, trying to regroup and understand what had gone wrong. General Zektail, now commanding what remained of the Vorthak fleet, sent a message. "To the human governments, we propose a ceasefire. Surely we can negotiate a peaceful solution to this conflict." The response came not from Earth's governments, but from Admiral Hayes himself. It was broadcast on every frequency the aliens used, making sure every Vorthik soldier heard it clearly. "You killed our children," Hayes said simply. "There will be no ceasefire. There will be no negotiation. There will be no peace. We are coming for you." The Vorthik had expected to conquer Earth in a few days. Instead, they had awakened something they didn't understand. An entire species that had transformed its grief into an engine of destruction. And now that engine was pointed at every world the Vorthik had ever called home. General Zektal thought the retreat beyond Earth's moon would give his fleet time to recover and plan. He was wrong. The humans followed them. Captain Jake Morrison led the pursuit in his rebuilt defense platform, now equipped with weapons taken from destroyed Vorthic ships. Behind him came a fleet that looked nothing like any military force in galactic history. Converted garbage trucks flew alongside former luxury yachts. School buses that had been turned into missile platforms worked with mining ships carrying nuclear warheads. "Sir, human forces are closing on our position," reported the Vorthic tactical officer. "They're not trying to negotiate or establish defensive positions. They're coming straight at us." Zektal studied the tactical display. The human fleet moved like a swarm of angry insects, with no formation or coordination that made sense. But somehow they worked together perfectly, covering each other's weaknesses and concentrating their attacks with deadly precision. "How many ships do they have?" "Over 800 combat-capable vessels, sir, but most of them were civilian craft a week ago. They shouldn't be able to fight in space." Zektal learned that humans could make anything fight in space if they were angry enough. The battle at Luna Base 7's former position lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Vorthic fleet was broken completely. Half their remaining ships were destroyed, and the survivors scattered toward their home systems. But the humans didn't stop pursuing. They followed every fleeing ship, learning their destinations and plotting courses to Vorthic colony worlds. On Earth, Dr. Lisa Carter worked with teams of engineers to reverse engineer captured alien technology. The process that should have taken years was compressed into weeks. Human scientists like Dr. Sam Mitchell and engineer Lisa Johnson worked 18-hour days, driven by the memory of Luna Base 7's children. "We've cracked their faster-than-light travel system," announced Dr. Mitchell from his laboratory in Texas. "It's actually simpler than we thought. We can build human versions in about a month." "What about their weapons?" asked Admiral Hayes from his command bunker. "Even better. Their plasma cannons use the same frequency rotation we already figured out. We can build guns that are twice as powerful and half the size." Dr. Carter looked at the data flowing in from around the world. Every major industrial center on Earth had been converted to military production. Factories that made cars now built spaceships. Companies that manufactured computers now created targeting systems. The entire planet had become a weapons factory. "Admiral, how long before we can launch the counterattack?" 3 weeks, Hayes replied. "We'll hit every Vorthic world simultaneously. They won't know what hit them." The Vorthic Collective had ruled over 47 star systems for more than 2,000 years. They had conquered dozens of species, always using the same careful approach. Study the enemy, find their weaknesses, make them surrender with minimal resistance. They had never faced anything like humanity. Colonel Amy Rodriguez led the first human expedition to a Vorthic colony world called Kethver. Her fleet of converted civilian ships arrived in the system without warning, moving faster than the aliens thought possible. The colony's defenses were designed to stop traditional military fleets, not swarms of irregular attackers. "Remember, Luna Base 7, Amy broadcast to her fleet as they approached the planet. "No prisoners, no mercy. Make them understand what they did." The battle for Kethver lasted 2 days. The human attackers didn't try to capture strategic positions or minimize casualties. They simply destroyed everything that could support the Vorthic war effort. When they left, the colony was uninhabitable. More human fleets followed, attacking other worlds with the same ruthless efficiency. The Vorthic military tried to adapt, but they couldn't understand how humans fought. Every species they had conquered before followed logical military doctrine. Humans felt like they were personally offended by alien existence. Ben Parker, now commanding a fleet of converted industrial ships, led the attack on the Vorthic shipbuilding center at Mordun. His crews were mostly former factory workers and Truck drivers, people who understood how to build things and how to break them. Target their construction facilities first, he ordered. These bastards won't be building any more ships to attack human children. The shipyards at Mardun had produced Vorthak warships for 800 years. Ben's fleet destroyed them in 6 hours, using suicide attacks and overwhelming firepower. When human engineers finished studying the wreckage, they knew how to build ships better than anything the aliens had ever created. Dr. Lisa Carter's psychological analysis proved correct in every engagement. The Vorthak couldn't adapt to fighting an enemy that used its entire population as combatants. They expected military professionals following established tactics. Instead, they faced farmers with missile launchers, teachers with plasma cannons, and grandparents piloting suicide bombers. "Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from 17 Vorthak worlds," reported the communications officer in Admiral Hayes. Bunker. Hayes looked at the tactical display showing human fleets advancing on every Vorthak system. "What are the terms?" "Complete withdrawal from all conquered territories, reparations for Luna Base 7, and submission to human authority." Hayes remembered the faces of the children who died on Luna Base 7. His own grandchildren were supposed to visit that base next month. Were supposed to, rejected. Continue the advance. The war lasted 11 months. When it ended, the Vorthak Collective no longer existed. Some worlds surrendered and were placed under human military occupation. Others fought to the end and were left as monuments to what happened when humans got angry. Captain Morrison, now Admiral Morrison, established the first human colony beyond Earth's solar system on a former Vorthak world. The colony was named Luna Base 8, in memory of the children who died. Every ship in the human fleet carried their names and pictures. The galaxy learned that humanity didn't just fight wars. They fought crusades. When someone killed human children, the response wasn't proportional. It was total. 5 years after the first Vorthak attack, human fleets patrolled 40 star systems. Earth's population had spread across dozens of worlds, all of them defended by weapons that made the old Vorthak military look primitive. Dr. Carter, now director of Galactic Psychology, studied reports from other alien species. Word was spreading through the galaxy about what had happened to the Vorthak. Other potential enemies were reconsidering their expansion plans. "Admiral, we're receiving a first contact message from the Zelkan Republic," she reported to Hayes. "They want to establish diplomatic relations." Hayes read the alien message. It was polite, respectful, and very careful not to sound threatening. What does it say exactly? "Standard diplomatic greeting. They've heard about humanity and want to discuss peaceful coexistence. They're asking for permission to approach our territory." Hayes approved the message that would be sent back to the Zelkan Republic. It wasn't a traditional diplomatic response. It was simple and direct, the kind of message that made sure there were no misunderstandings. "We are humans. We remember everything. Choose wisely." The message was transmitted to every known alien civilization in the galaxy. Some species chose to become allies. Others chose to avoid human space entirely. A few made the mistake of testing human resolve. None of those species existed anymore. Humanity had learned something important during the war with the Vorthak. When someone attacked human families, grief didn't make them weak. It made them dangerous. And the galaxy would remember that lesson for a very long time.